Shabbat Shalom. I will admit before all of you and before the Holy One that these days I'm doing a lot of grasping at straws. And grasping at straws is something we've done for a long time as a people. There's a story about Rabbi Akiva lecturing to his students, and he noticed them nodding off. To wake them up, he posed an intriguing question. Why did Queen Esther rule over 127 provinces? The odd inquiry piqued his students' curiosity, and they woke up. The answer, said Rabbi Akiva, probably with a twinkle in his eye, he said, it lies in the lifespan of our matriarch Sara, as revealed to us in this week's Parsha. Sara lived for 127 years, and that's why Queen Esther ruled over 127 provinces. Grasping at straws, indeed. But part of the midrash that captures us is the notice that the students were falling asleep. Rabbi Akiva lived and taught during the dreadful era after the destruction of the Second Temple. And Rabbi Pini Dunner notes that the Jewish people were gripped by terror for the future amidst some of the most challenging problems ever faced by the nation. We might forgive them that it was a period marked not just by physical lethargy, but by profound spiritual exhaustion. But Rabbi Akiva was willing to grasp at straws, to make an unlikely connection, to give to his students a message of hope and resilience. Despite the darkness of their days, they could be sustained by the strength of their ancestors, reminding them that they too, exhausted as they were, possessed the potential for greatness. Grasping at straws. At the end of this week's Parsha, we learn that Abraham took another wife. Her name was Keturah. In Genesis chapter 25, verse 1, we meet her, and she has many children. My beloved Rabbi Mordechai Finley writes about that particular moment in this week's Jewish Journal for Los Angeles. And he notes one of the more brief and brilliant commentaries, because Rabbi Judah, in the era of the Talmud, suggested that this Keturah is Hagar. It's an old standing interpretation that Abraham remarried Hagar, now with another name. And Rabbi Judah simply says in the Midrash for Genesis Rabbah 61, verse 4, Keturah zo Hagar. Keturah is Hagar. The Midrash is telling us that Abraham loved Hagar. The desperation of barrenness that caused Abraham and Hagar to be thrown together, however begrudgingly, produced a kind of forlorn intimacy. Perhaps their love was simply that of two people who quietly asserted their humanity in the midst of a vortex of pain and destiny. Sarah's barrenness brought them together. Sarah, giving birth to Isaac, drove them apart. It's not supported by the biblical narrative. It is a kind of grasping at straws. But Rabbi Judah was conceiving of a God who holds blessings in store that might have seemed to be sheer fantasy. Kind of the way we sing every Friday night, light is sown for the righteous and joy for the upright of heart. Abraham could easily have just married an incense woman of consolation, because the word keturah means incense. But Rabbi Judah didn't accept that. He forces the narratives back together. Hagar's son Ishmael nearly died, but Ishmael was Abraham's son as well. Both of Abraham's sons, Isaac and Ishmael, nearly died at his own doing. Imagine the terror at Abraham's heart, the trauma. But An angel of God intervened both times for Abraham's son. Hagar and Abraham shared horror, but also an angelic miracle rooted in that horror. At the end of this week's Parsha, Isaac and Ishmael come together to bury their father. We don't have a record of what the two men said at their father's funeral, and we will never know. But our tradition gives us permission to grasp at straws. We do know from the Torah that after the funeral, Isaac settles at a place called the Well of the Living God Who Sees Me. This is the place that Hagar named after her extraordinary angelic vision when she was told that Ishmael would be saved. Isaac goes to live with his half-brother and stepmother, we can imagine, after the death of his mother, Sara, and marrying the love of his life, Rebekah. We can imagine, grasping at straws a little, or maybe not too much, that Isaac took his new wife, Rebekah, to that place that was a nexus of divine energy. We can imagine that maybe Rebekah got to know Isaac's stepmother, Hagar, and his half-brother, Ishmael, very well. With the rabbinic permission to say Hagar is Keturah, and Keturah is Hagar, we stitch together with straw these broken strands of a story that we read every year and yet rings differently for us as the wheels of fate continue to turn. We are not the only ones that grasp at straws today, and those two ends of the Parsha are not the only place where that appears. Much has been made this week. It is true, the Talmudic saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I've been hearing this teaching this week in the ether from numerous sources, including my friend Rabbi Deborah Silver, my friend Rabbi Jamie Hyams. Just, I guess what you need to hear comes and finds you. In the heart of this parsha is the scene with the camels. And the word in Hebrew for camel is gamal. Camels appear quite a lot. It's a wonderful word. It's the same word that's used to describe weaning a child, gamal, higamel. It's at the heart of the phrase we know well from our experience in Jewish life, gemilut chasadim, translated often as good deeds, but means something more like accomplishments of loving kindness. Professor Raphael Lowe always pointed out that the word gamal implies a connection, a relationship. So these mysterious camels that appear more prominently in this parsha than anywhere else seem to be carrying more than just people and their belongings. They're a conduit along which goodness can flow. These gemalim, these camels that symbolize endurance, economy of means, stretching of resources, are an invitation to us to do the same, to know that the journey is long, that we need to be sparing in our use of resources, we need to have a strong back, and we need to be willing to give. Because as my friend Rabbi Deborah reminds us, giving energizes in a way that taking doesn't. So many people are grasping at straws. We feel helpless and powerless, exhausted like Rabbi Akiva's students, desperate to find connection, to see things that maybe aren't there because we want to see the good, and we're so desperate to find it. But there's another moment in this parsha. It's tiny, but I'm going to grab onto it anyway. Because not only does Rebekah offer water to Abraham's servant and to the camels, but she also offers a place to stay. And this is what she says. Verse 25, Genesis chapter 24. First she says, I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor, identifying with her grandmother. And she went on, there is plenty of straw and feed at home, and also room to spend the night. Rebekah offers hospitality, she offers sustenance, and she offers straw. Rough, flimsy on its own, but pulled together into a sheaf, it is unbreakable. It's okay to grasp at straws. Abraham's servant did it. Our teachers throughout the generations have done it. Our survivors have done it, clinging to the threads of the lives that were, stitching them into new and beautiful tapestries. It's okay to grasp at straws. Please, God, may there be plenty of straw to go around, and let us continue to grasp it together. Shabbat Shalom.